Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Trade Deadline Show podcast. Cubs get ready to take on the Reds. We break down the moves they made and didn't make right up until the 5 o'clock deadline. It is possible a few deals will still come trickling in at the final moment, but the trade deadline has come and passed for Major League Baseball, technically at 5 o'clock tonight. Luke Stuckmeyer and Cody Delmendo. Ryan Herrera is at the ballpark at Wrigley Field. He'll be here for the post-game show podcast that we have tonight right after the game. This podcast, for the most part, will be dedicated to moves that were made or not made right up into the deadline, for which the Cubs became buyers, not sellers, because of 10 wins in 12 games. We believe is the reason the Cubs decided to go for it as opposed to trading Cody Bellinger, trading Marcus Stroman, trading some of those relievers, Merriweather, other guys. The Cubs still made trades. They still lost some of their prospect depth. We'll discuss some of those. Greg Huss from Northside Bound will join us in the second segment of this, a prospects guru who knows all things Cubs prospects. Hello to everybody in the live chat. Already see a lot of familiar names there. Please hit the like button. And Ricky De Hoyos with the first super chat of the night. Can't wait for this and the game. Well, we've been waiting for this trade deadline. Last year was a real buzzkill, Cody.
Yeah.
Last year we sat here and we waited, and then Contreras and Happ didn't go anywhere, and Efros ended up being the biggest deal, and Efros did get you Wesneski, so there was some activity, but that was the surprising activity. Sort of surprised Wisdom wasn't traded. I think the biggest thing that happened today, of course, is that Trey Mancini was DFA'd by the franchise.
Yeah, that was probably the most surprising thing. And honestly, I guess we can all look at it as a win. Nothing against Trey Mancini, but I think we were all pretty much done with him. The numbers were awful this year. So as far as that, I guess that's I agree. It's the biggest surprise of the day. Am I surprised that at this point nothing else has come out? It's 5:07 right now. As I say that, I think I saw our friends at Bleacher Nation, Brett Taylor, tweeted that the Castellanos trade in 2019, it took 10 to 15 minutes for that one to come out after the actual deadline, the 5 o'clock hour. So I'm we'll sit and see if anything happens here over the next 10, 15 minutes and, see if the Cubs were able to get what I hope is a left-hander reliever. If you want my reaction to what they did these last 48 hours.
Yeah, give them an overall grade for the trade deadline. And, that includes the last 48 hours, let's say.
I will give it a C+, because you got a bat that you needed at a position that you needed help at. You got a reliever that they believe has high upside, but we don't really know about. And they got another reliever that I think is probably going to be put in the minors that, they kind of are excited about too. And those are the two guys that we'll talk to Greg Huss about.
Right.
More so than anything. I don't know anything about them, but I like the way the guys that they moved to make these additions. You didn't give away any of your top prospects, and they added in spots that they needed, it felt like. So I give it a C+ just because I'm hoping for that left-handed reliever to come out. If here in the next handful of minutes there's a report that they got a reliever or another reliever, then I'd boost it up to a B or a B+.
My overall grade would be a C, and that's because a C is a passing grade.
Yeah.
I think they picked a lane, so that's why it's a C. Time will determine whether or not that lane was correct, but right now for me, it's a C. I wanted the Cubs to pick a direction. Are you buyers or sellers? I didn't want them to go all in and mortgage the future for a run with a flawed team this end of the season. But I also wasn't sure I wanted them to just stand pat and do nothing. So they did pick a lane. They've added, listen, first base and third base have been the biggest problem offensively this season for the Cubs. And we knew it going into the season that first base and third base were the biggest problems. Last year, the problem was first base and third base. So the Cubs made off-season moves at first base. Last year, we had Rivas, Schwindel, and Wisdom playing first. Mostly Wisdom at third, right? We had VR a little bit at third. We had some other guys. None of those worked out. None of them worked out last year. So they flipped it around, and this year the Cubs went with experience because we all thought, well, maybe Mervis gets the shot and Mervis gets the deal.
Yeah.
They didn't add one veteran first baseman. They added two, which caught a lot of us by surprise in the offseason as well, which should have been a little bit of a eye-opener for us to know that, hey, they may not be as big on Mervis having a big breakout rookie season as some of the fans and prospect people might be, okay? So they go out and they add Hosmer and they add Mancini. Both were good major league players at one point. The game has passed both, is what's safe to say. Both great guys, both loved in the clubhouse. Hosmer was sent packing earlier in the season, and now it's Mancini, which frankly is a little more surprising because they still owe him, I believe, $7 million next year.
Yeah.
So they're going to eat that money most likely and just say, all right, we're moving on. Mancini is a guy who, 263 plate appearances, and you pointed out 4 home runs. He was brought here as insurance for Mervis at first base. We were told he could play some right field. That didn't really work out, that he could play the outfield very well, at least anymore. First base was not necessarily a great position for him, and he was supposed to be one of the guys we kept saying, where's the power going to come from on this team? Where are they going to get their home runs? Mancini is one of the guys you were hoping could deliver some of that power. It just didn't happen. 4 home runs. So the Cubs have parted ways. Matthew Gregory is saying now it's about $10.5 million if you can, factor in as well as what they're paying this season. It's a lot of money. And Jesse Rogers saying, no, they didn't do anything else. That's it. They're done.
Unless he said that on radio or TV or whatever. He didn't tweet that.
No, he's probably on the radio right now. Yeah. But regardless, as of right now, Candelario is the headliner for what the Cubs have done. He does fit in at first and third, and it sounds like he's going to be playing more first base than I expected, Cody.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't played there since 2020.
Yeah. This is my 2 cents on it. We've sat here and bickered about Madrigal playing third all season, or at least the amount of opportunity that they've given Madrigal to play third all season. But let's be real here. For the most part, out of anyone who's played at third base this year, for this organization, he's been the most productive. I think that's fair to say. He's been the most productive third baseman and the best defensive third baseman as well. And the way that this team is set up as far as pitching, starting pitching especially, they don't have a lot of swing and miss dudes. So they are emphasizing or caring more about who they have set up defensively on the infield especially. And I think that's why that they are going to continue to just ride Madrigal at third. Do I think he's your future third baseman? If he is playing third base for the Chicago Cubs in 2024, they better have done other things to bring power to the lineup bring power throughout the lineup to, I guess, negate the fact that he just is not a prototypical third baseman. And if they do that, I can get past it. But he just is not what you want as far as an offensive hitter at third base. He just isn't. And again, I give him all the credit for becoming a very solid third baseman. We all made all those jokes in the offseason about how, can this guy even throw it past the pitcher's mound, all this stuff. But he legitimately has played a better third base than anyone else that they've put over there. And I give him credit for that, and I put my hand up for making the jokes and for not really having a lot of faith in. Now, did he struggle offensively for 2.5 months? Yes. It was so bad that they sent him to Iowa. They sent him to Iowa, he got hot, and he brought it back, and he helped the Cubs start winning games. And then, of course, the injury happened again, and now he's been back the last handful of days, and he's had some good games. If he continues to hit, then I can get past it. It's not that I need him to hit homers, I need him to just continue to get on base because I do like him in that 9 hole. Whenever you go right before you go up
back to
Nico or Tauchman, whoever at the top of the lineup, I don't mind that. But to bring it back around related to Candelario, if they're gonna play him at first base majority of the time, then that is them saying that Madrigal is gonna play third. And whether you like that or don't like that, that's just what they're doing. And I'm explaining their thought process behind it and what I think. And I just think because he's been so good defensively there, that's why they're doing it. Maybe there will be days where they give Madrigal the off day because maybe the matchup doesn't work well with him and they put Candelario at third and maybe Wisdom gets some time at first. I don't know. Like, because that's the thing for me is I still don't know how they're going to get playing time for Wisdom. You know what I mean? And
Wisdom's not getting playing time.
I think
that's not going to happen.
I just don't. I don't know how they're going to get Wisdom any playing time. And the thing is like he has the most homers on the team.
I wouldn't have been surprised if Wisdom was the guy DFA'd.
Yeah,
but we talked about it last night. It's funny that you would even consider DFA'ing the guy who leads your team in home runs.
Yeah.
On a team without home runs.
And I'm also curious about will they call Mervis back up? And if they do, then maybe then that will get them to move Candelario over to third. I don't know. It's a very interesting thing. And then also, because if they are going to play Candelario at first base more often than not, then you're definitely playing Bellinger in center over Tauchman, which is fine with me and the fact that there's just more value there. You're getting more value in center field now. But then you're talking about your 2 corner outfielders then in Seiya Suzuki and Ian Happ. And let's be real, Mike Tauchman's been playing well enough that you can't not put this guy in the lineup. He ignited the offense when they started leading him off. So there's a reason that Seiya Suzuki's out of the lineup tonight, right? So all I'm saying is it's going to be very interesting to see them try to maneuver this moving forward. And hey, if they care about winning more than they have to pay these certain guys because of how much money they're making, fine. Do I think Seiya Suzuki is better than what he's been? Yes. I definitely do think he's better than what he's been over the last 2 months. But yeah, it hasn't been good. It's hurt the team. Hitting him in the 2-hole last night when he hasn't been hitting, it's insanity. Maybe the Cubs are realizing that they can't play him as much as they want to anymore. I don't know. But if this process is going to lead them to not playing Mike Tauchman as much, it will hurt over the rest of the season, I think. Just based off how he's been playing. He's been great since they called him up from Iowa. So how they figure that out?
Well, it's David Ross's job. That's David Ross's job. A couple responses to everybody in the chat right now. Matthew Gregory, who's a great follower, watcher, listener of the podcast. We always appreciate him coming on. He first says, I think Jed deserves better than a C, and I will respond to that. Matthew is saying, I was very happy with a C in school many times.
Same. C's get degrees.
Don't you judge against a C because
I got
that
a
is
2.9
GPA
GPA in college.
A C is at a passing grade, and I will take it. So I wasn't snubbing him. I was giving him what I thought was a passing grade. Doug Van Dorn says, no. The reason he believes Candelario's at first is because they've got Seiya off and it's moving guys around. But, and I see a lot of people in the chat saying, including Matthew Gregory pointed out that Jeimer Candelario has the highest WAR of any third baseman in the National League. But from what I understand, our guy told us that David Ross said at the ball. Ryan told us that David Ross said at the ballpark, Candelario is going to play the most of his time almost strictly at first base. That was the surprising news of the afternoon. First it was Mancini DFA'd, and then it was David Ross saying, nah. We believe that the move is he's actually better at first base and that he'll play mostly at first base. And so that would mean, as Cody pointed out, it most likely means Madrigal is at third. It doesn't mean Mervis is getting called up and playing first base. It doesn't mean that Bellinger is at first and you get to play Tauchman in center. I find it interesting that David Ross is basically telling us he believes the best lineup the Cubs can put out there is Madrigal at third, Candelario at first, Bellinger in center, and it appears to me that would leave Tauchman and Morel as your DHs, even though Tauchman has been very good, unless the Cubs are ready to move Seiya to that role as he struggles and put Tauchman in right field.
Yeah.
Now, that is a possibility. And I will say, I have never seen Tauchman play right field.
But if he could play center,
I would think he could play right field as well as Seiya.
Yeah.
And frankly, his bat has been more effective than Seiya's this season.
The thing that's surprising is that I just didn't think the Cubs would actually do this, because the amount of time, I am scarred from all the times that they put Jason Hayward in this lineup whenever things were not going well, right? He was paid a ton of money. Say Suzuki, he's not paid as much as like Jason Hayward, but he's making a good amount of money. To me, this is them saying that Seiya Suzuki's playing time is going down. Or it's like, I don't think Ian Happ's playing time is going down, but I do think Seiya Suzuki's for sure is going down.
That's the way I'm reading it too.
Yeah.
I don't think they're ready to say Tauchman's not playing. I think they're going to say Tauchman's going to play a different position and Bellinger's going back to center.
It better be. To me, it better be, because and as someone who is, I just tweeted earlier today that I still believe in Seiya Suzuki, and I think that he can get back to at least what he was giving you last year.
I do too, but Morel is your DH because he gives you the power that you don't have.
Right. There's something, whatever, they gotta get Seiya Suzuki right. I think the team is better long term if Seiya Suzuki gets right. Like the thing that's been most disappointing from him this year is that the power just has not shown up. He has 8 homers. His OPS is almost below 700. He's not playing well. He'll have a good handful of games, and you're like, oh, he's getting hot. Maybe this is the stretch that he needs. And then he has the weekend that he had in St. Louis, and that flowed into last night's game where, great, he had a sac fly, he hit that one hard, and it drove in a run. But man, a couple strikeouts and a bat in two bad spots that you needed him to do something. He's not giving you quality at bats right now. It's tough to watch. It really is tough to watch. And so, to me, it has to be that they are making Seiya Suzuki the odd man out on this, if Candelario is going to be playing first base almost exclusively.
I don't know how else to explain it. Joey Tucker says, play your 9 best no matter what. That's the way it sort of looks. Now, somebody else in the chat, and I missed the name, I apologize, they said, listen, your best defensive infield is Madrigal at third, Candelario at first, and Horner and Swanson up the middle. I don't agree with that. To me, Bellinger has saved multiple errors over at first base just in the last week.
Yeah.
Big stretches. He made spectacular double plays on his own, throwing to second, getting it back. To me, Bellinger is your best first baseman. And I haven't seen enough recently of Candelario to say he's better than Madrigal. But I would think he's as good as Madrigal at third. Now, hats off to Madrigal. He's way better at third than we thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
Okay?
Like I said.
But so, exactly. So I would think that this is not as much about defense as this is about trying to get as many bats as you can, your best offensive lineup every night.
As good as Bellinger has been at first base, you know that you'd rather have him in center than Tauchman. As good as Tauchman has been in center.
He's a better center fielder than Tauchman, but Tauchman has been pretty good.
Yeah. And he's been pretty good. He saved a game.
A huge game.
Yeah, right. So, to be able to move him into right field, you're probably still getting the same type of defense that you were getting from him in center. And so it is, again, it's just very interesting to see how this is going.
It's fluid. Aaron says that. He says, don't read too much into this. Madrigal's not a guarantee to keep hitting.
Right.
And that's true. If Madrigal doesn't hit, then absolutely Candelario's got to go over to third base.
And I agree.
And then Bellinger has to go back to first.
Right.
So we'll see how it all plays out. Now, the Cubs also did make another deal today. Minor league right-handed pitcher Josh Roberson comes over from the Rays. The Cubs send Adrian Sampson, who we thought might be part of the Cubs rotation this season. He was injured, and then it just unraveled. And the promise of Adrian Sampson doing what he did the second half of last year completely unraveled and fell apart, so you wish him well with the Rays. And I almost have no doubt now. Now that he's going to the Rays, I almost have no doubt that he's going to come back. And then Manny Rodriguez, who we'd see come up, also dealt with some injuries, but obviously had the stuff to pitch in the majors and be part of the bullpen. You thought, but never had really grabbed that opportunity and run with it. So Mad Rod is gone, Adrian Sampson is gone, and the Cubs get an international signing pool space from the Rays. So that's something to keep an eye on in the future. Is it a big deal? No. The Cubs, what they did get was their first or third baseman and a bat to the lineup that extends the lineup and should help the bottom of the order. A guy who's having a really solid year on a rental deal because he'll be a free agent after the season. They could still bring him back if you want, but you traded away two prospects. They're fairly highly thought of, but were Rule 5 draft eligible in Hers and Made yesterday for Candelario. So that's part of the reason those guys were willing to part with them for a rental player at third or first. What they really didn't get is a lefty reliever, and I'm sort of surprised. I guess the price was too high for Aaron Bummer.
Yeah.
Or whoever they were looking at, because it's clearly, if you're trying to win the division, it's clearly one of the things the Cubs need. First, third, lefty reliever. With Hughes having injuries this season, it has left you with using a righty, Leiter, who gets the batters out on the, he's got the reverse splits, but I don't want his arm to fall off before the season ends because he has to pitch every time you need to get a lefty out. So they could have used a lefty reliever. They don't appear to have that guy right now in the minor league system. Maybe teams held that against them and were like, listen, you want this? You're going to pay for it. And the Cubs were not willing to mortgage the future for a team that is certainly flawed, but is 5 games out of first place, and they haven't been to the postseason recently, and you'd like to get there if it can catch fire. I've seen the stats. I'm not a numbers guy, but I know that if the Reds play 500 ball, the Cubs have to be spectacular the rest of the season.
Right.
So they better start winning starting tonight.
I know Greg Huss is going to join us here in a handful of minutes, but I did see our other good prospect friend, Brian Smith from Bleacher Nation, tweeting about Josh Roberson earlier today. And I'll just read his tweets. He said, in regards to Sampson and Rodriguez, they were both set to be minor league free agents at the end of the year. So someone is seeing something here that they maybe kind of just a little like. So both teams just kind of a little bit about each thing, I guess.
Right.
For Cubs, perhaps it was something scouting Roberson, recently, as he has that nice 0.69 earned run average in his last 10 outings. And in the thread, he put that his fastball sits around 96 to 98, 89 to 91 on the slider. The numbers a little inflated on his ball, the BABIP at 381. But, the velo and all that looks good. He went on to say the Cubs surely see some big league potential there. But if he doesn't break through this year, likely hope they can get him to agree to a 2024 successor contract. So, me personally on that trade, listen, Manny Rodriguez could throw 99, 100 miles per hour. He showed flashes at times where he looked like someone that could be something. But again, when it comes to the Cubs pitching infrastructure, they have a lot of dudes. There's a lot of dudes there in Iowa and on the come up that I like. So moving on from him doesn't necessarily bother me. And Sampson, we know what he is. He's in his early 30s. He's been a journeyman, as they call it, all around the league. I wish he would have had a bigger role on this year's team because he was so good in the second half of last year. But because of the injury and missing time, you weren't even able to build up any real trade value for the guy. And, that is what it is. So The only thing that kind of scares me about it is just the fact that it's the Rays. So if Manny Rodriguez goes to the Rays and turns into a back-end closer that's striking everyone out at a 35% clip, like that will look bad. He's the only one of between him and Sampson that I'm like, the Rays are going to turn this guy into something.
Sampson's not an issue. It's the guys that you're trying to decide that might be Rule 5 draft eligible. Right. That you're trying to decide, listen, let's get something in case we lose them.
But again, they're all going to be minor league free agents. So,
that's right.
I guess in a sense it makes sense that they were able to do something.
Okay, we're going to get to Greg Huss here in a second. I do want to tell you about Hooters, guys. It's your chance and spot to catch all the games this season. Step up to the plate for their world-famous wings. Not regionally famous, not locally famous, world-famous wings. Delicious seafood, stacked sandwiches, salads too, and more. Tons of great beer specials. $6 drinks all day, every day. Check out their seafood specials. $19.83 for a pound of crab legs. Great prices on buffalo and steamed shrimp. Hooters celebrating 40 years in business all year long. In honor of that anniversary, on the 4th of every month, Hooters is hosting throwback events, bringing back the 80s with 83-cent wings. My friend Clark is all about it. Other great specials as well. The next one coming up this week, August 4th, almost here. Today's the 1st. You do the math.
I don't do math, but
the 4th. Get there. Hooters, 83-cent wings. Man, where can you get a deal like that these days? Wings for 83 cents.
That's true.
Gobble them up.
Gobble them up. All right. And when you're on your way to Hooters, it's the summer. You know that the sun's out, especially here in the beautiful city of Chicago. So you got to have your Shady Rays, man. Got to have the Shady
Maverick
Rays.
music should be playing right now for me.
These are my friend Sean W.
I just got these. Just got these minutes
Mine
ago.
are in my bag. These were in the
Just got
office.
these minutes ago.
Sean needs to clean his sunglasses. Jesus.
I bet my wife is watching going right now, and she's thinking, how am I going to get my hands on those sunglasses?
I know. Well, you can, and if you listen to me tell you about Shady Rays. Take on the sun with gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered for the warm weather ahead with premium polarized shades at an affordable price. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair we've worn. Durable frames and extremely clear optics for the outdoor adventures. And that's not all, Luke. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost and broken replacements. If you lose or break your pair, even on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair. No questions asked. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after you purchase. Together with their customers, Shady Rays is providing much-needed support to nonprofit partners across the U.S. and through Shady Rays Impact, from building play sets for pediatric cancer patients to providing young adults with MS. The outdoor adventure of a lifetime, Shady Rays is making an impact in your community and others like it now and for years to come. If you don't love your Shady Rays, exchange them for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try yourself the shades, rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people.
Becky said it in the super chat. Super moon tonight.
Oh.
Gonna need your Shady Rays even at night.
Even at night.
You know who needs some Shady Rays? We gotta get Greg Huss.
Greg Huss needs some Shady Rays.
He's got some Shady Rays. This is his day. This is what he lives for. Talking prospects and deals. Greg Huss from Northside Bound. Greg, can you hear us all right?
I can. Can you guys hear me?
We got you.
I can.
Terrific.
I like the Myrtle Beach hat.
Very nice.
I'm missing the Shady Rays. They go well out at Myrtle Beach, I'm sure. So, I don't know. It's a 1-2 punch.
So, Greg, as you were watching this, and obviously a lot of times there's prospects that are going out in the deals, and the Cubs have done a nice job of building up the farm system, a little bit of depth, so that they can make some of these smaller moves. Let's start with the Candelario deal and the guys that are Rule 5 draft eligible going the other way. What do you make of that trade? How does it unfold in your eyes?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people quick to just simplify this trade. It's, Candelario was the best rental bat on the market. And all things considered, 2 prospects that are ranked in the 20s in terms of where in the system, that's a pretty good get. That's not too much giving up for the best rental bat on the market. But I think you can't look at it really that simply, right? I mean, Candelario being the best rental bat on the market, that's not a normal season, right? Typically, you have somebody that's significantly better than what Candelario is. With all due respect to what he's done this year, 3+ WAR in half a season is impressive, but this is not a typical trade deadline season in terms of what we're getting from that market. So both hers and Kevin Made are guys that I'd say a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, like much higher ranked, and I would have been really upset to see these guys go, especially for a guy like Candelario. But yeah, they're fun players, but not necessarily good bets to be stars at the major league level.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Hers I know is a guy that we've heard really good things about. And he was trying to cut down on walks, but then the strikeouts apparently dropped a little bit too. Do you think these guys will still be Major League Baseball players at some point? I mean, I know that's a roll of the dice for any prospect, but do you still see them as potential players that you will look at and say, the Cubs let one get away in a rental for Candelario?
Yeah, I could see both of these guys could be. If I was putting money on one of them, it would probably be DJ Hers over Kevin Made. Actually, let's dig into Made first. With okay. Made, he is really good on defense. He has one of the best arms in the system on infield defense. I think his range is actually really solid. I got to see him play quite a bit at shortstop the past few weeks. I got to see him over in the Quad Cities and got to see him in Peoria. And he just looks really strong in the field. I'm really impressed with his infield defense, especially at shortstop. He can play some second, play some third. That's like his calling card. When Kevin Made came up and was playing full season ball in Myrtle Beach a couple of years ago in 2021, the dude just didn't take any pitches. He swung at every single thing that was thrown to him. My buddy Jimmy Nelligan, who was a co-founder of Northside Bound, he was a podcast host with me before. He wrote an article about Kevin Made's 2021 season where he had all of, I think it was 9% of his at-bats over the course of that 2021 season. He got to a hitter's count. It was either 2-1, 2-0, or 3-0 count, or a walk. Pretty ridiculous. He's changed a whole lot since then. Been a whole lot more patient at the plate, walk rate right around 10%, but he's just not hitting the ball very hard. And that's what worries me from a prospect perspective. I don't know that those exit velocities will ever come around for Kevin Made, and so that's why I'm more skeptical of him reaching the major leagues. With DJ Hers, the stuff is there. We know he's got that quirky delivery. We know that he basically goes towards the first base dugout when he's delivering a pitch, and that makes that low 90s fastball play up to the mid 90s. But it's just been like you mentioned, Luke. It's been the command and control has not really been there for DJ. But when it's on, he's really good. I could see him being a multi-inning reliever or even a shutdown one inning reliever at the big league level one day. But it's just got to kind of fall right for him. I'm not betting against DJ Hers because that guy has some type of motor and some type of just drive to be better and better every single day.
What about the pitcher they're getting from the Rays? Because anytime you trade with the Rays, I get nervous because they know what they're doing. They don't spend money, but they know what they're doing. Yeah. So should we be concerned that Manny Rodriguez is going to the Rays?
It feels like a dump of just a little bit of salary here and there. To me, that trade does. I don't know what I don't know what the word is on social media about what people think about that trade, but I view it as just no. You're giving up Adrian Sampson, who lost a 40-man roster spot. You're giving up Manny Rodriguez, who also lost a 40-man roster spot, but they're being paid a little bit more than the typical guy in AAA. And then you're getting one guy back who's kind of in that same mold to a certain degree, but making less money. I think this is a way to cut some costs, some small costs, and it's not like the Ricketts are cheap type of cost. It's just like a way to save a little bit of money. Obviously, Roberson is a guy that throws hard. He's got a hard fastball, a high 80s slider too. He just can't find the zone at all. So I don't know. I think that it reminds me a lot of, we already have Cam Sanders down in AAA as a reliever. It reminds me a lot of that. Maybe the Cubs like what they see. He goes on a hot streak, and we see him in Chicago in later on in the season. But I'm not reading in too much into this trade at all, honestly.
Yeah, I was reading some tweet from our friend Brian Smith about Roberson, and it seems like the stuff is there, but it's just kind of fine tuning it. What about the reliever they got yesterday from was it the Royals?
It was, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Jose
Quas.
Thank you, Luke. Is
Velasquez.
Is he a guy that we would more likely see at some point in the second half year? Because I know he at least has major league experience.
Yeah, he's been to the big leagues this year. I like the quirk that he's a side armor. Mm-hmm. I like pitchers that do weird stuff. Like I like pitchers that do things that I'm not used to seeing on a baseball field. And so Quas being a side armor, I love that. And I think the Cubs have been really good at identifying those guys that do things that are not normal. That's what makes giving different looks out of the bullpen is always a good idea. And the Cubs have a lot of different looks, like the Mark Leiter Jr. I know he doesn't throw all that weird, but the fact that he's a reverse splits guy with a splitter is that's weird. I think the Cubs have been really good at that. Nelson Velasquez, it seems like, I don't know. I'm still a believer in Nelson Velasquez not being a superstar, not even being like a middle of the order batter at all, but just I think he can be a regular in the major leagues. I'm really glad he gets the opportunity in Kansas City because he sure as heck was not going to get that opportunity in Chicago. So it feels like the Royals probably got the heavier end of that deal, got a better end of that deal potentially. But I don't think the Cubs got fleeced, and I don't think that Nelly was going to get the chance to play in the big leagues in Chicago anyway. So this kind of, I thought there was going to be more trades like that, to be completely honest with you. I thought there was going to be I thought Perlaza had a big chance of being traded. I thought Luis Vasquez did. There's a lot of guys that are kind of that may be ready for the big leagues, but the Cubs probably don't want to risk calling them up quite yet. I thought we were going to see more of those type of trades.
Yeah.
Maybe if they get lucky, they find their next Efros, or they find their next, whom I think is Steve Cishek, right? You hope you find that guy and that's who you develop. Is there a player that you were worried as a Cubs fan might be thrown in a deal and you were like, okay, but just don't deal this guy?
Yeah. When the Pete Alonso rumors were starting to swirl a little heavier, I was a little worried about losing Kevin Alcantara because it felt like of the top prospects, he might have been that guy that got dealt because PCA wasn't going to go anywhere. Cade Horton certainly was not going to go anywhere now that he's up in AA as of today. And then you kind of get into the next tier of guys, the Triantos and the Ballesteros and the those type of guys that wouldn't necessarily net you enough, a guy like Pete Alonso. And so the player that would headline that deal absolutely was going to be Kevin Alcantara, and that worried me a little bit. So I'm glad to see Kevin Alcantara still in the system because to this day, I think that he has the highest upside of anybody in the Cubs system right now.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Now that's saying something because PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong, just moved up to AAA. Are there other players you now will think have moves because of these trades? And what do you think of PCA going to AAA? What's the earliest you think he could make it to the majors? Because I've seen people in the chat thinking it's happening in September. Ryan Herrera says, slow your roll, probably not. What do you think?
I think the expectation coming into this year with PCA was, all right, let's basically this timeline, maybe a little bit quicker seeing him in Iowa, which we could have seen him 3-4 weeks ago in Iowa. But I think this same timeline with the hope that he then gets called up to the bigs in September, it probably depends on a lot of different things. Now that the Cubs have Candelario playing first base, which means that Bellinger is rooted in center field, and then you got Tauchman, Seiya maybe platooning a little bit in right field, then it doesn't quite make as much sense unless he is just continuing to tear the cover off the ball in AAA, and you think that is that last oomph that you need to succeed in the playoffs. I think we see him on the opening day roster come next year, and I think that's perfectly fine. I'm all about that.
One other question, not related to deadline. I saw Matt Shaw is starting. He went to South Bend, skipping Myrtle Beach. So don't let me talk myself into, next year, September call-up, Greg. Don't let me do it. Talk me off the bridge now.
No,
this is a big deal to me.
But where are you going to – the interesting thing about – I think you just take the best player when the draft comes around, but he likely is a second baseman in the major league level, right? So
I don't see why he couldn't be a third
him?
baseman. You
think he can play third?
I don't see why he couldn't play third base.
Okay.
If Nick Madrigal can be a positive defender at third base in the major leagues, then why can't Matt Shaw? That's the way I look at it. I
I'm
think
all in.
It'll be curious to see what he does in South Bend and getting a better look at him on defense for sure. I don't think he'll be up next year, Cody, unfortunately. But I think the assignment to South Bend is just because if he was assigned to Myrtle Beach, he would have still been significantly better than everybody playing there, just because he was a stud college performer, and he would have been playing against a whole bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds in Myrtle Beach. You know what I mean? And I think that wouldn't have done a whole lot for his development going there. Like, if that was the case, might as well just stick with him in Arizona and let him play there a little bit longer. So
fair enough.
I think we see him in South Bend this year. If he gets assigned to Double-A Tennessee to start off next year, I wouldn't be shocked to see that at all. It'll probably depend a little bit on what we see from him the rest of the year this year. So, I think that end of next year is probably wishful thinking. Early 2025 is not. But, again, we haven't seen him take a single at-bat in full season ball yet. So we got to slow down a little bit.
Any other, Greg, before we let you go, any other reaction to the trade deadline or any of the moves the Cubs did or did not make?
Yeah, I think that I'm going to go back a little bit to the Nelly trade, because I think that is what allowed a spot to open up in Iowa for PCA to roam the outfield, because there's that logjam of outfielders in Iowa right now. So you see that trickle down effect of PCA up to Iowa. We could see a guy like Ezekiel Pagan go from South Bend to Tennessee, Parker Chavers go from Myrtle Beach to South Bend, and then some of our draft picks that we just saw selected a couple weeks ago make their way up to Myrtle Beach. So all of this roster shifting is affecting the entire minor league system, and where guys are reassigned, are promoted, are demoted, or wherever they end up. Now, because I was expecting more trades to happen in terms of that Iowa depth, I think there might be less shifting than what I had originally thought would be the case, but that's still going to happen. Like you said, Matt Shaw, I think that he will likely be joined by another draft pick in South Bend this week. I don't think Matt Shaw is the only guy there. And then I just think that there's a lot of shifting still to happen. I think that my big takeaway from this is that the Cubs are leaving this trade deadline and draft season with a better farm system than when before the draft happened, right? I think that adding Shaw and Rivera and Jackson Wiggins and all those guys outweighs losing just DJ Hers and Kevin Made. So I think it's a net positive for the system this month.
I think I love that how you ended that, because I think what we all want is for the Cubs to be able to make these types of trades. But as long as they keep making great draft decisions and building through the system and stuff, then you're not going to put yourself in a situation where you regret the Quintana trade or something like that again. Because if you do end up having to make a trade like that because you go for it down the road, maybe that trade looks bad. But if you're still developing guys, you're probably still in a good spot organizationally, and the Cubs are hopefully still a competitive team. So I like that point that you said at the end.
But one last thing. Gary wants to know, when is Jake Slaughter getting called up?
I think that, honestly, things have gone downhill for Slaughter in terms of the likelihood of a call-up because the Cubs are so good, right? Because the Cubs are buying, right? Or bought. I guess the deadline's over. So because the Cubs are competing, I think that the likelihood of Slaughter getting a call-up goes down a little bit, unfortunately for him. But if he kills it, I mean, there's always a chance that he gets called up later in the year. We'll see.
Well, okay, here's a more
So you're
realistic.
saying there's a chance, Gary.
A more realistic one here for you, Greg. What about Mervis? Because we were just talking about how the Cubs are going to play Candelario almost exclusively at first base now. Does that mean he's probably going to stay in Iowa? Do you think he might get some DH opportunities if they do call him up? Or that would be a spot, but then you also losing time for Morel there. I think for me, it seems like Mervis is going to spend the rest of the year in Iowa. That's what it feels like, unless barring an injury.
I think an injury's got to happen. I think an injury's got to happen to see Mervis. And I think really the way this major league roster is constructed now, I think it can be an injury pretty much anywhere for the most part to see Mervis, because Candelario can play first and third, Madrigal can play third and second, Morel can play in theory wherever. Like I think there's enough positional flexibility on this roster that they can mix and match so that Mervis can either be DH or first base, and they're solid. You know what I mean? So I think an injury across the board anywhere might warrant a Matt Mervis call-up.
Okay. Sounds good. Greg Huss, you can catch him on the Cubs On Deck podcast, Northside Bound as well. Greg, thanks for your time as always. Hopefully we'll talk to you maybe right around, I don't know, September 1st. Sound good?
That sounds good. Hopefully we're talking PCA. We'll see.
PCA and playoffs.
I love it.
That's
playoffs.
Thanks, Greg. Have a great night.
Thanks guys.
Again, Greg.
Cody, tell us about Goose Island, because that's a way to talk us into a beer bat after a big Cubs win tonight. Or into a beer bat, I should say.
It is currently 5:50 Central Standard Time, all right? Mm-hmm. So that means the Cubs and the Reds are going to play game 2 here in about an hour and 10 minutes. For the love of God, Chicago Cubs, please win. If we win tonight, the beer bat is back, because we've lost 2 in a row, so I won't feel like I'm ruining it if they win. We're going to bring it back tonight if the Cubs win. So it'll be, the beer bat is full of Goose Island beer. All right, Goose Island is the official beer of CHGO. Chicago's beer since 1988. They got the Goose Island IPA, which is a 6-time medal winner at the Great American Beer Fest, always in style. The Tropical Beer Hug, the 312 Wheat Ale everyone knows about, and of course the Full Pocket Pilsner was one of my favorites. Let's see, grab your ultra fresh brewery exclusive beers at Goose Island Original Brew House on Clybourne Avenue in Lincoln Park, or from their tap room on Fulton Street in Westtown. One of my favorite tap rooms in the city, by the way. Goose Island Beer Company, Chicago's beer. And Luke, let me tell you, nothing goes better with beer than college.
Or a beer bat.
Or a beer
than
bat.
Beer. Mm-hmm. Speaking of beer bats, a lot of them get taken down at colleges. But a university that is serious, Lewis University.
Obviously.
They get students just like us, full-time jobs, families, full-time sports fans. You can go back to school and earn a respected degree right now at Lewis University, 35 miles southwest of Chicago in Romeoville. This is one of those diamonds in the rough. Ranked as one of U.S. News and World Report's top-tier colleges, Lewis partners with numerous employers for tuition discounts, offering evening, online, and blended formats to help you balance work, family, and education. Their faculty bring real-world experience and instruction to the classroom. They offer career support and academic resources for adult students. And if you're looking to maybe complete your bachelor's degree or master's degree or enroll in a professional certificate program, Lewis probably has that program for you. They offer several career-based programs that'll set you up for success. Here's one of them. Cybersecurity may not be a bigger program out there, a bigger problem for our country right now. Cybersecurity, Lewis, a Department of Homeland Security Center of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity, providing students with scholarship funding that is not available anywhere else. Discover how a degree from Lewis can help you build a better world. Learn more at lewisu.edu/you-can-do-this.
278 people watching, 76 likes. Make that make sense to me, folks.
We have got to get to 100. That's embarrassing. If we now first 278 is pretty nice.
We're giving you all 2 shows tonight. I mean, come on now. All right.
Yeah, let's get it to 100, huh?
So now that time has passed and the Cubs didn't make any more moves, and Jesse Rogers was right, they didn't make any more moves, I still remain with the C+.
C.
Yeah.
C+.
I am disappointed that they didn't get another left-hand reliever. Maybe that means they'll call up a guy that's in Iowa that is a left-handed reliever. I believe Bailey Horn is a left-handed reliever. I've been begging to kind of see him all season. A guy that got from the White Sox for Ryan Tepera back in the 2021 deadline. Maybe like that's what they want to do. They want to bring in relievers from within and hope and pray that works out. They've had guys that have worked out that way. So maybe that's a guy that we might see here in August. I understand that Leiter Jr. is the reverse splits guy. I understand it, but I don't know. I just like, when was the last time this team had a really good left-handed reliever? And the only person I can think of is Aroldis Chapman, man. Like,
yeah, well, it's
like they desperately need one, and I don't trust that what they have in the bullpen is going to be able to really help carry this team to the promised land of the playoffs the rest of the way. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that they do give someone a chance to come up and maybe just do something. And if it works out, great. All credit to them, but I really thought they could have used a left-handed reliever. I understand that this isn't the year that they should have gone all in or anything like that, but I don't even think you had to go all in to get a left-handed reliever. You know what I mean? So I guess that's what I'm left bummed about. I mean, I know a lot of talk on social media today with Pete Alonso out there as a thing, Eric Bednar, that stuff kind of heated up a little bit there for a few hours.
But like Greg Huss was saying, I didn't want to lose Alcantara or other players to go get a closer, because relievers are just too fickle of a group of players for my taste.
For sure.
But Cody, we both gave C+, and I told Matthew Gregory, that's not a bad grade. That's something I would have been, all good with in school.
I had a 2.9 GPA in college.
More often than not, a C was okay with me.
That's about a C.
That's the way I looked at it. That was my phrase through school. Yeah. C is okay with me. Now, had I told you 2 weeks ago, before the Cubs go on this 10-12 run and get back in it, if I had told you that today we'd be sitting here and the Cubs would be 5 games out of first, Bellinger and Stroman still on the roster, and they added Jeimer Candelario to play first and or third, what would your reaction have been? So just set yourself back 2 weeks, and how would you have looked at this deadline deal?
Been 5 games back. That means
5 games back.
You would have told me that they would be 5 games back, and that they still kept
both
them.
Both Stroman and Bellinger, which I'll be honest with you is a little shocking to me.
Yeah, I guess if you told me that without telling me all the results of what had just happened, then I would tell myself that they started playing well enough to get themselves back in the race. Is that the 2 weeks?
If I don't tell you the 5 games out, you think that they're probably even closer than that.
Because 2 weeks ago, they were as far as 8.5 back. I want to say, I think that's as far as they went, was 8.5 back. So, yeah, that means that they went on a bit of a stretch and they took advantage of the easy schedule. And now, like, they were in position to, give us some memories these next 2 months.
This is what you wanted.
Yeah, this is what I wanted.
You wanted Bellinger and Stroman so you could play meaningful baseball down the stretch.
Yeah.
You were like, this is time to act like a big market team. No, don't give me the loser's mentality. Yep. Well, the Cubs may not have done crazy trades to go build up this team and fill every hole, because there's more than one hole on this roster, but a lot of teams have a hole. That's why all these deals are happening at the end of the season. But they kept a guy who is clearly their best position player.
Yep.
Their most superstar power, and a guy who has had a horrible 27 earned run month of July, but prior to that was one of the best pitchers in baseball this season.
Yeah.
I think that impacted their ability to trade Stroman whether or not they wanted to.
Yeah.
I think the way he pitched in July lowered the return enough that they were like, you know what? We can't get there is no qualifying offer to him.
Yeah.
That's not happening. So Stroman, if he goes, is going.
It's going to be interesting to see how for Stroman himself individually, he's got to pitch better if he even wants to opt out. If he opts in, then you're going into next season with a guy that has been mostly consistent throughout his tenure with the Cubs, and throughout his career. He had a bad month and a bad start in London at the end of June. So he had a bad 5-6 start stretch. Was it 7 start stretch? Yes, he has to be better. Yes, he needs to. Yes, he needs to pitch like the $20 million pitcher that he is. But right now he's playing himself out of like opting out. Like if this keeps up, if this goes into August, not only will it hurt the Cubs, but it's going to hurt him individually.
Pitchers are hard to find.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how fans will react if this continues with Stroman and like he plays himself into a position where it's like he might as well just opt in. How will fans be happy about it, or how fans will react to it in terms of will they be okay with it, or are we upset because he pitched so bad that now we have to deal with him? Like it's still one more year.
Still waiting to find out what no-show Szczur was about last night after the game.
Yeah.
Where was he at the press conference? Didn't talk to the media.
It's going to be interesting.
All right, Steele tonight against the Reds. Thanks to everybody who joined us. We appreciate that. Thanks for checking out the live YouTube chat. Best way to enjoy the CHGO Cubs podcast is to sign up for the CHGO Sports podcast on YouTube. For those of you that partake in our podcasts in, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever it might be, please go give us a good review and a thumbs up and all those nice things. We appreciate it. We will see you back here for another full hour after the game.
They better let us be in Studio A.
This right now, we're going to take Studio B so the Sox can talk about nothing for 2 months.
Yeah, come on, man.
No offense, fellas. We're Studio A.
How many times did we take Studio B last
I don't care
year?
if you get swept by the Reds. We're Studio A. Let's make it happen. Until the postgame show, thanks for watching and fly the W.